Maya Washington held her newborn daughter close to her chest, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her own. The medical bay of the space station hummed quietly around them, filled with soft blue lights that made everything feel peaceful. Her baby girl, Zara, had the most beautiful skin that seemed to glow softly, like moonlight on water. It was a gift from her father's alien heritage, something that made Maya's heart swell with pride every time she looked at her. But that pride was about to be shattered. The door to the medical bay slid open with a soft hiss, and her husband walked in. Thainville moved with the graceful steps of his people, the Altarians, his tall frame casting long shadows across the room. His skin had a crystalline quality that caught the light, and his eyes usually held the warmth of distant stars. But today something was different. Today his face was cold as space itself. Maya smiled up at him, expecting to see joy in his features as he looked at their daughter for the first time since the birth. Instead she saw something that made her stomach drop, disgust. "Thainville?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the medical equipment. "Don't you want to hold her?" He stood at the foot of her bed, his hands clasped behind his back in a formal pose that she'd never seen him use with her before. This wasn't her loving husband speaking. This was Ambassador Thainville of the Altarian Empire, cold and official. "Maya Washington," he said, using her full name like she was a stranger. "I must inform you that our marriage contract has been terminated, effective immediately." The words hit her like a physical blow. Maya blinked, certain she'd misunderstood. "What did you say?" "Ancient Altarian law has been reviewed by our High Council. The birth of mixed offspring nullifies any union between our species. This child," he gestured toward baby Zara without looking at her, "is considered an abomination under our sacred texts." Maya's world tilted. 2 years ago, when humanity had first been welcomed into the Galactic Trade Federation, their love story had been celebrated across worlds. She was a young lieutenant from Earth's space program, and he was a respected diplomat. Their wedding had been broadcast to billions as a symbol of unity between species. Now he stood there telling her it meant nothing. "Thainville, this is our daughter," she said, her voice growing stronger despite her shock. "Look at her. She's beautiful. She's perfect." For just a moment, his crystalline features seemed to waver, and she saw a flash of the man she'd fallen in love with. But then his expression hardened again. "You have 3 solar cycles to gather your belongings and leave this station. Transportation back to Earth will be provided." 3 days. Maya's voice cracked. "I just gave birth. I can't travel with a newborn in 3 days. The decision has been made." He turned to leave, then paused. "Maya, this isn't personal. It's law." But she could see it in his eyes, the fear. This wasn't about ancient laws that had suddenly been discovered. This was about politics, about the other species in the Federation who had never truly accepted humanity as equals. They'd found their excuse to start pushing humans out, and her innocent daughter was going to be their first victim. As the door slid shut behind him, Maya looked down at baby Zara. The little one's eyes were open, staring up at her with an intelligence that seemed far beyond her few hours of life. Those eyes held depths that reminded Maya of looking into deep space, mysterious and infinite. "Don't worry, baby girl," Maya whispered, tears falling onto her daughter's glowing cheek. "Mama's going to figure this out. I won't let them hurt you." But even as she spoke those brave words, Maya felt the weight of their situation crushing down on her. She was alone on an alien space station, thousands of light years from Earth, with no money and no allies. Her diplomatic status was gone along with her marriage. She had no legal right to stay, and apparently no legal right to her own husband's protection. As if sensing her mother's distress, Zara made a soft cooing sound. But something strange happened when she did. The medical monitors around them flickered, their displays showing brief bursts of complex data patterns that Maya didn't recognize. The baby's tiny hand moved toward the nearest screen, and for a moment, Maya could have sworn she saw numbers and symbols flowing across it like a river of light. Maya shook her head, telling herself it was just exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. But deep down, she wondered if there was more to her daughter than anyone understood. Maybe that's what they were really afraid of. The next 3 days would change everything. Maya just didn't know it yet. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's world fell apart, and now she found herself in a place she never imagined existed. The lower levels of Station Nexus 7 were like a hidden city beneath the shining diplomatic floors above. Here, the walls were darker, the air recyclers worked a little harder, and the people moved with the careful steps of those who had learned to stay invisible. Maya adjusted the baby carrier strapped to her chest, making sure little Zara was comfortable. The journey down here hadn't been easy. When the official transport to Earth had been mysteriously delayed, then cancelled entirely, Maya realized she was being deliberately stranded. No one would give her passage off the station, and her credits had been frozen along with her diplomatic status. But sometimes being forgotten had its advantages. In the chaos of her official exile, no security forces bothered to track where one human woman with a baby actually went. So she'd found her way down here, to the forgotten spaces where the Federation's rules seemed to bend and fade. "You look lost, sister," came a voice from behind her. Maya turned to see a woman about her age approaching. She had the warm brown skin and kind eyes that reminded Maya of home, but there was a hardness around the edges that spoke of difficult experiences. More interesting was the child walking beside her, a boy who looked about 8 years old, whose skin had an unusual shimmer that shifted between human brown and something that looked almost metallic. "I'm Rochelle," the woman said, extending her hand. "This is my son Kevin. We heard about what happened to you up in the diplomatic sector." Maya shook her hand gratefully. "News travels fast down here." "Everything travels fast when you're living outside the system," Rochelle laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "Come on, let me show you around your new neighborhood." As they walked through the winding corridors, Maya saw something that amazed her. This wasn't just a refugee camp or a slum. This was a community. Children played in common areas while adults worked at makeshift businesses. Gardens grew under artificial suns, providing fresh food. People had built something here, something real. "How many of you are there?" Maya asked. "About 300 families," Rochelle replied. "All mixed couples who got thrown out when the politics changed. See, what happened to you isn't new. It's been going on for 2 years now, ever since the Federation started talking about genetic purity and species integrity." They stopped at a small medical clinic where Maya met Dr. Aisha Franklin, a woman whose calm presence immediately put her at ease. Dr. Franklin had been a respected xenobiologist before her marriage to a Vorthan scientist had cost her everything. "Let me take a look at your little one," Dr. Franklin said gently, and Maya carefully lifted Zara from the carrier. The moment Dr. Franklin's medical scanner passed over the baby, her eyebrows shot up. "Maya, has anyone actually examined your daughter since birth?" "The station medics did a basic scan," Maya replied, suddenly worried. "Is something wrong?" "Wrong? No, honey, something is very, very right." Dr. Franklin showed her the scanner readings. "Look at these neural pathways. Your daughter's brain is processing information at speeds I've never seen. And these energy readings, she's generating bioelectric fields that shouldn't be possible in someone so young." As if responding to the attention, baby Zara opened her eyes and looked directly at the medical equipment. Suddenly, every screen in the clinic lit up with cascading data streams that moved too fast for human eyes to follow. "She's not just looking at the machines," Dr. Franklin whispered in amazement. "She's communicating with them somehow." Kevin, Rochelle's son, stepped closer to the baby. "She's like us," he said simply. Then he reached out his hand, and his fingertips began to glow with a soft silver light. When he touched a broken tablet on Dr. Franklin's desk, it immediately sprang to life. "The mixed children," Dr. Franklin explained to Maya, "they all have abilities that neither parent species possesses alone. Kevin can interface with any technology just by touching it. Jasmine over there," she pointed to a teenage girl helping younger children, "can understand any language the moment she hears it. Little Tony can sense emotions from across the station." Maya watched in wonder as more children gathered around them. Each one was unique, each one carried the heritage of two worlds, and each one seemed to possess gifts that defied explanation. "But why hide down here?" Maya asked. "These abilities could help the entire Federation." Rochelle's expression grew dark. "Because they're terrified of us. Terrified of what our children represent. The Federation species have been separate for so long, they've forgotten how to grow, how to change. Our kids prove that mixing isn't weakness, it's evolution." Dr. Franklin nodded grimly. "Every month, more families arrive. Mixed couples being torn apart, children being taken for study, parents being deported. The Federation talks about unity, but they're systematically eliminating anyone who actually embodies it." As night fell in their underground world, Maya sat in her small assigned quarters watching Zara sleep. The baby's skin still glowed softly, and occasionally nearby electronic devices would flicker in rhythm with her breathing. Maya had come down here with nothing but her daughter and desperation. But now she was beginning to understand that she'd found something much more valuable. A community of people who refused to let fear win, and children who might just represent the future of the galaxy. She just had no idea how right she was, or how soon that future would be put to the test. 2 months had passed since Maya found refuge in the underground community, and baby Zara was growing faster than any normal child should. At what should have been 3 months old, she was already sitting up, reaching for objects with purpose, and her eyes tracked conversations as if she understood every word. More unsettling was how electronic devices seemed to respond to her presence, screens lighting up and data flowing whenever she was near. Maya had been spending her days helping Dr. Franklin in the medical clinic, but her nights were devoted to something else entirely, digging through the station's vast digital archives. Her background as a communications officer had taught her how to navigate complex databases, and living in the underground had taught her how to do it without being detected. What she found made her blood run cold. "Rochelle, you need to see this," Maya called out one evening, her voice tight with urgency. She was hunched over a salvaged computer terminal in the community's makeshift library, surrounded by data files she'd been collecting for weeks. Rochelle arrived with Dr. Franklin and several other parents. Maya's screen showed a timeline stretching back 50 years, filled with reports, medical studies and legal documents. "Look at this pattern," Maya said, pointing to the data. 50 years ago, the Altarian Empire had a population of 12 billion. Today, 8 billion. The Zephyrians went from 20 billion to 14 billion. Every major species in the Federation is experiencing the same thing. Population decline? Dr. Franklin frowned. That's not unusual for advanced civilizations. But look at why. Maya highlighted specific medical reports. Genetic disorders increasing by 300%. Birth defects. Shortened lifespans. Mental instability. Classic signs of inbreeding, Dr. Franklin finished, her face going pale. They've been keeping their bloodlines pure for so long that they're literally dying out. Maya pulled up another file. Here's a crystalline medical report from last year. They're projecting species extinction within 2 centuries if current trends continue. The Vorthans have similar projections. So do the Etherians. The group stared at the screen in stunned silence. These were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, species that had mastered faster-than-light travel and built wonders that spanned star systems. And they were all slowly dying because they refused to adapt. But that's not the worst part, Maya continued, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Look at this. A new document appeared, a secret Federation Council meeting from 3 years ago. As Maya read the transcript aloud, the room grew deadly quiet. The human integration experiment has produced unexpected results, Maya read. Hybrid offspring display cognitive and physical capabilities that exceed both parent species. Recommendation: immediate termination of interspecies breeding programs before genetic contamination spreads. Genetic contamination, Rochelle whispered angrily. They're calling our children contamination. Dr. Franklin leaned forward, studying the medical data more carefully. Maya, according to these readings, the mixed children aren't just healthier than pure-blooded individuals, they're evolutionary leaps. Look at these brain scans. The hybrid children are developing neural structures that don't exist in either parent species. Which explains why they can do things that shouldn't be possible, Maya added, glancing toward the children's area where 8-year-old Kevin was somehow making a broken hologram projector display perfect 3-dimensional images just by concentrating on it. But the most shocking discovery came when Maya accessed the Federation's deep space monitoring network. There's something else, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Something they're not telling anyone. The screen filled with astronomical data. Readings from the galaxy's edge that showed massive gravitational distortions approaching from outside known space. What is it? Rochelle asked. They don't know, Maya replied. But according to these projections, whatever it is will reach the outer systems within 2 years. The Federation's top scientists have been working on it for months, and they can't even figure out what they're looking at, let alone how to stop it. Dr. Franklin studied the data with growing alarm. These energy readings? Maya, this isn't just some space phenomenon. This is something that could destabilize the fundamental forces that hold matter together. As if summoned by their conversation, little Zara began making soft sounds from her crib across the room. Maya went to check on her daughter and found the baby staring intently at nothing, her tiny hands moving as if she was trying to grasp something invisible. "Mama," came a clear voice that made everyone in the room freeze. Zara had never spoken before. But more than that, the words seemed to resonate with harmonics that human vocal cords shouldn't be able to produce. The baby's eyes, now glowing more brightly than ever, looked directly at the screen showing the approaching cosmic threat. Her next words came out in perfect, impossible clarity. "Big darkness coming. Need all minds together to make it stop. The adults stared in stunned silence. This wasn't babbling. This was a child who could barely hold her head up 3 months ago, speaking with the clarity of someone much older, about things she couldn't possibly understand. Dr. Franklin's hands shook as she ran another scan over the baby. Her neural activity just spiked to levels that should be impossible. It's like her brain is processing information from everywhere. Maya picked up her daughter, feeling the warmth of her glowing skin and the strange sense that Zara was somehow aware of things far beyond this room. They're not afraid of our children because they're different, Maya said quietly, the pieces finally falling into place. They're afraid because our children might be the only ones who can save them. As night fell over their underground sanctuary, Maya held Zara close and stared at the cosmic threat data still glowing on the screen. Somewhere out there in the darkness between galaxies, something vast and dangerous was approaching. And somehow her 3-month-old daughter already knew about it. The question was, would the galaxy listen to what their children were trying to tell them before it was too late? Maya stood before a jury-rigged communications array, her heart pounding as she prepared to send a message that would change everything. 6 months had passed since she'd discovered the truth about the Federation's dying bloodlines and the approaching cosmic threat. Baby Zara, now impossibly advanced for her age, sat in her carrier nearby, watching the equipment with those unnaturally bright eyes. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Franklin asked, her hand hovering over the transmission controls. "Once we send this out, there's no taking it back. They'll know exactly where we are." Maya looked around at the faces of her underground family, Rochelle with her son Kevin, whose metallic skin could now interface with entire computer networks. Dr. Franklin herself, whose half-orphan daughter Nia could somehow sense quantum fluctuations with her bare hands, and dozens of other families who had found refuge in their hidden sanctuary. "We can't hide forever," Maya said firmly. "Our children are trying to tell us something important, and the galaxy needs to hear it." She activated the transmitter, and her voice began broadcasting across subspace frequencies to every hidden community, every secret refuge, every place where mixed families had been forced into exile. "My name is Maya Washington, and I'm speaking to you from Station Nexus 7. 6 months ago, my husband divorced me because our daughter was born with mixed heritage. But I've learned something that changes everything. Our children aren't mistakes, they're the galaxy's only hope for survival." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, messages poured in from across known space. Hidden communities on mining asteroids, refugee camps on forgotten worlds, secret enclaves in the Outer Rim. Everywhere humans and aliens had fallen in love and been cast out for it. But more than just messages came through. Something else was happening, something that made Maya's skin prickle with excitement and fear. The children were talking to each other. 10-year-old Kevin sat perfectly still in the community center, his eyes rolled back, his metallic skin pulsing with soft light. Across the room, Dr. Franklin's daughter Nia had gone equally still, her half-orphan features glowing with energy patterns that seemed to respond to Kevin's rhythm. "What's happening to them?" Rochelle whispered, reaching toward her son. "Don't touch him," Dr. Franklin warned urgently, checking her medical scanners. "His neural activity is off the charts, but look, it's synchronized with readings I'm getting from monitoring stations across the galaxy." On Maya's communication array, dozens of frequency bands suddenly came alive with signals that seemed to pulse in perfect unison. Reports flooded in from other hidden communities. All the mixed children, regardless of their age or species combination, had entered the same strange state simultaneously. Baby Zara, now 8 months old but with the awareness of someone much older, began to speak. Her words came out clear and strong, impossible for a child her age. "We hear each other now," she said, her voice somehow carrying harmonics from dozens of other young voices. "The network is complete. The big darkness comes faster now. 3 seasons, not 12. Maya's blood ran cold. The approaching cosmic threat, originally projected to arrive in 2 years, was now less than 1 year away. Dr. Franklin's scanners showed something incredible. The children weren't just communicating across vast distances, they were sharing processing power. Their minds had somehow linked into a collective intelligence that could analyze data from across the entire galaxy simultaneously. "Show them," Zara said, still speaking with that impossible chorus of young voices. "Show them what comes." Every screen in the underground facility flickered to life, displaying a 3-dimensional map of their galaxy. At the edge, a massive dark presence moved closer, consuming light itself as it advanced. But more terrifying was what the enhanced projection revealed. This wasn't just some natural phenomenon. It was alive. The Federation's response was swift and brutal. Within days, Admiral Korath arrived at Nexus 7 with a full battle fleet. His demands echoed through every level of the station. Surrender all mixed children for immediate relocation to protective facilities. Maya knew what that really meant. The Federation planned to separate the children, study them, and ultimately eliminate them before their abilities could spread further. Standing in the main docking bay with little Zara in her arms, Maya faced down the Admiral and his armed troops. Behind her stood 300 families who had chosen to make their stand here rather than run again. "Admiral Korath," Maya called out, her voice carrying across the bay. "Your own scientists can't understand what's coming for us. Are you really going to destroy the only minds that can?" The Admiral's crystalline features showed no emotion. "These hybrid abominations are a threat to galactic stability. They will be contained." But before his troops could advance, something extraordinary happened. Every piece of technology in the docking bay, ship computers, communication arrays, environmental controls, suddenly activated simultaneously. The children, still linked in their strange network, had taken control of the entire station. Zara looked up at the Admiral with eyes that held the wisdom of hundreds of young minds working as one. When she spoke, her child's voice carried the weight of an entire generation that refused to be silenced. "We are not abominations," she said clearly. "We are evolution. And evolution cannot be stopped by fear." The lights throughout the station pulsed in rhythm with her words, and every screen displayed the same message in hundreds of languages. "The children are our future. Choose wisely." Admiral Korath hesitated, his hand moving away from his weapon. For the first time, doubt flickered across his face. Outside the station, long-range sensors detected the approaching darkness, now moving faster than ever. Time was running out, and the galaxy would have to decide whether to embrace change or face extinction alone. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had never seen anything like this before. Representatives from every major species sat in stunned silence as the holographic displays showed the same terrifying image. 3 outer rim systems had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not conquered, but completely erased from existence as if they had never been there at all. Maya stood in the center of the great chamber, holding 18-month-old Zara, who had grown into a child with the awareness of someone decades older. Around them, the council members whispered in dozens of languages, all asking the same desperate question. How do you fight something that can erase matter itself from reality? "Honorable representatives," Maya began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. 6 months ago you called our children abominations. Today they're the only ones who understand what we're facing. Chancellor Vextar of the Altarian Empire, Zara's own grandfather though he'd never acknowledged her, leaned forward in his crystalline throne. "Human Maya, our greatest minds have studied this phenomenon. It defies all known laws of physics. How can hybrid children possibly comprehend what our scientists cannot?" Zara shifted in Maya's arms and looked directly at her grandfather. When she spoke, her young voice carried impossible depth. "Because you think in straight lines, grandfather. But the universe curves. The darkness isn't from outside, it's from between." The child's words sent murmurs through the assembly. Dr. Franklin, now serving as Maya's scientific advisor, stepped forward with her data pad. "The hybrid children have been studying this entity through their linked consciousness," she explained. "What they've discovered is that it exists in the spaces between dimensions. It's not invading our galaxy, it's collapsing the barriers that keep our reality stable." Admiral Korath, who had become an unlikely ally after witnessing the children's abilities firsthand, activated his tactical displays. 3 more systems are showing destabilization signs. At this rate, the collapse will reach core worlds within 4 months. "But there is a solution," came a chorus of young voices. Every screen in the chamber flickered to life, showing the faces of hundreds of hybrid children from across the galaxy. Kevin, now 12 years old, appeared on the main display, his metallic skin glowing with data streams. "The entity feeds on isolation," he explained with the clarity of a master scientist. "Every time species separate themselves, every time they choose purity over connection, they make the barriers weaker. But when minds link together, when different becomes unified, the barriers grow strong." Chancellor Vextar's crystalline features showed confusion. "What are you proposing, child?" Little Zara wriggled out of Maya's arms and walked toward the center of the chamber. At barely 18 months old, she moved with purpose and spoke with authority that made seasoned diplomats lean forward to listen. "All minds must join as one," she said simply. "Not just hybrid children. Everyone. Altarians, humans, Vorthans, crystallins, all species. Link consciousness like we do. Share thoughts, share strengths, become what the galaxy was meant to be." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The concept went against thousands of years of species separation, of carefully maintained genetic purity, of the very foundations their civilizations were built upon. Impossible. Chancellor Vextar declared. Alterian consciousness is sacred. We cannot contaminate it with inferior thoughts. But even as he spoke, the tactical displays showed another system beginning to flicker at the edge of existence. Maya looked around at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders and felt a familiar determination rising in her chest. Your pure consciousness is dying, Chancellor. Your birth rates are falling, your people are getting sicker, your technology has stagnated for centuries. How's that purity working out for you? Dr. Franklin activated her medical scanners, showing the assembled representatives data they'd been trying to ignore. Genetic diversity isn't contamination, it's survival. The hybrid children don't just have mixed DNA, they have evolved neural structures that can process quantum information directly. That's why they can understand this threat when we cannot. As if responding to her words, Zara and the other children began to glow more brightly. The lights throughout the chamber pulsed in rhythm with their heartbeats, and every piece of technology hummed with harmonious energy. We can teach you, Zara said, her small hand reaching toward Chancellor Vextar. But you have to stop being afraid of us. Stop being afraid of change. The moment of truth came when long-range sensors detected the entity approaching the core systems ahead of schedule. Traditional weapons had proven useless, evacuation was impossible, and pure species thinking had offered no solutions. In desperation, Chancellor Vextar was the first to extend his hand toward the glowing child who carried his own bloodline mixed with human heritage. The moment their skin touched, his crystalline features began to show patterns of light that matched Zara's rhythm. I can feel them, he whispered in amazement. All of them. Every child, every linked mind. Such complexity, such beauty. One by one, other representatives joined the link. Admiral Korath, Dr. Franklin, even the most conservative species leaders found themselves drawn into a network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. For the first time in millennia, different species were sharing thoughts directly, experiencing each other's perspectives, understanding instead of fearing. The effect was immediate and profound. As millions of minds linked together across hundreds of worlds, the approaching entity slowed, then stopped, then began to retreat. The collapsing dimensional barrier stabilized and grew strong. Maya stood in the center of it all, watching her daughter guide the consciousness of an entire galaxy like a conductor leading a vast orchestra. The child who had been rejected as an abomination was now the bridge that saved everyone. Months later, Maya found herself in an office she'd never imagined having, Director of Integrated Development for the new Galactic Unity Coalition. Outside her window, the first mixed-species colonies were thriving, and children of every possible combination played together in gardens that bloomed under artificial suns. Zara, now walking and talking like any normal toddler except for the occasional moment of impossible wisdom, tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mama, why were they so scared of being different? Maya picked up her daughter and looked out at the thriving community they'd helped create. Because they forgot something important, baby girl. They forgot that different isn't dangerous. Different is how we grow. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how it should be.